guys, welcome back to Project Potter. Welcome back to Gotta Get Back, the Samurai Jack and Review Show. This is episode 2, guys. I'm your host, Kyle. And then these guys, I always do that, these guys over here are the 3 unnamed characters that Jack runs into, and this is where Jack gets his name. And fun fact, kind of jumping the gun here, Samurai Jack, his real name is never mentioned in the series. It's never credited. So, like, the series is called Samurai Jack, and oddly enough, this is how he gets his name. So, if you guys haven't seen the show before, thanks for checking out the channel. Of course, we're doing a recap of every episode of Samurai Jack. So it's going to be basically a quick recap. We're going to do my favorite scene, a score, and then the strongest character. So, similar to how we've kind of done the other reviews here. These ones will probably be a little bit shorter just because it is kind of shorter episodes, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed episode 1. So kind of jumping back in episode 2 here, guys. If you guys remember at the end of last episode, Aku throws Jack into he tears open a portal in time, as he says, and he throws Jack into the future, where he says, "My evil is law." That's like the opening before every episode, and Jack he's thrown right in. So it opens up with him going through like the black and the white spiral, and he's literally falling down from being thrown forward in time, and he goes right into a spaceport, and it's like right out of Attack of the Clones, dude, in Star Wars. So like right at the flying cars, there's no end. He like falls on a car, and he's scared. He's like looking around. He doesn't know what's going on. He has to kind of like jump from car to car. There's like an assassin after him. I don't know why, but there's just like an assassin with like turrets. And so he like jumps between the cars, eventually goes up there, uses his sword, cuts the car in half as it like goes and explodes down. He lands down there. That's cool. There are like these 3 guys watching him, which these guys, nope, this way. These guys over here, there's like a big, it looks like a destroyer truck. I don't even know what to call it. It's like this big truck with these huge spike wheels. It's really cool animation. But basically it's like going through and crushing the gravel, and Jack is down there. I don't know why he can't jump out. I'm guessing it's too steep. So this was a little strange. But basically, he actually rides the wheels up, like to get back up there. So he doesn't even end up fighting this machine. Even though he kind of readies his sword, he uses like his agility. He climbs underneath it and then eventually goes on the wheels and then gets up out of there. That's where he runs into these dudes. And there's like a little scene where they're like, "Oh, Jack, that was crazy. Like, I can't believe you did that." And they're like, "Whoa, Jack was all like, that's cool." And kind of stereotypical, but a nice little scene there. So they're like freaking out, and Jack is like, "Oh, cool." And he's like, "Yo, where am I?" And they're like, "What are you talking about? This is like one of the most popular space sports." And he's like, "I need to talk to your king. I need to talk to who's in charge." And they're like, "Oh, Aku?" And he's like, "Aku." And he looks up, and it's like Aku eating like a Subway sandwich, basically. He like readies the sword, and they're like, "Dude, you look so out of whack." They're like, "You need to chill out." And basically they're like, "Oh, Aku is the master of masters. He's in charge." Like, and he's like, "Since when?" And they're like, "I don't know, since forever." Like, it's just always been like that. That's all they've ever known. So that was cool because, like Aku says, his evil is law, and that's what's going on here. But they're like, "Yo, go hit up the bar down the street, like chill out a little bit." So he goes to the door, and there's like 3 slots, and there's 3 different eyes that say like, "What's the password, whatever," and he doesn't know it. And they're like, "Yo, Jack's just trying to get a drink." And he's like, "Why didn't you say that?" And it opens up, and it's really cool because it's actually one monster with 3 different sets of eyes. And visually, this is really cool because Jack goes in there. We know it's a spaceport. So they're like all kind of creatures. Not only is it the future, but he hasn't seen like any of these creatures before. So there's like a lizard guy. There's like a little skeleton guy. There's a whole bunch of different really cool like creations in here. It's really Star Wars-esque. With all the different like creations, and Jack is like staring at everyone, and everyone's kind of giving him looks. There's like exotic dancers in there. They're in like the cages. The club music is going. When they first open the door, Jack's ears are like popping because he's used to like a quiet like farm town, like where he was from. It was like really quiet and peaceful. This is like the complete opposite. Like the music's going and everything's happening, and it's busy and it's chaotic. And Jack's like, "Look, I come in peace. Like, I don't mean any harm." And they're like, "Oh, I'm not worried about you." They're like, "You're going to harm me?" He's like, "No, I'm going to harm you." And then this was weird to me because they just started fighting. And I was just like, Jack didn't really do anything to like, he didn't like spill a drink or anything or push anyone or bump at anyone. It's like, they just started fighting for no reason there. So like there's like a big lizard guy, and he takes out like it's like a robotic arm with like a sword attached to the end of it, and they start fighting. There's like a quick scene. Jack does some magic with with his sword, but it's like it kind of cuts it out. It doesn't really show a bunch of the action here. There's a dog. I don't know if it's the talking dog from the Powerpuff Girls. I know the universes are connected, I think. But basically they're like looking for someone to basically save their people. And they're looking around asking for people, and they're like, oh, we couldn't get anyone to do it. We couldn't get anyone to do it. And then they see Jack take down all these guys, and they're like, that's our boy. And it's great because he's got like he's got like a monocle, and, you know, he's like a classy dog. And it's funny because Jack is like, demon dog. He's like, you'll not fool me again, talking demon dog, or whatever. And he's like, no, dude. He's like, I'm just a regular, like, he's like, oh, you must not be around here from here. Because he's like, we have a whole planet of like talking dogs, basically. So it's a fun little episode. This episode felt a little more like kid friendly to me. So it was a different change of pace, but they do a great job. There's like a scene where they're like at the bar or at the table, and the dogs are like drinking, but they're like using drinking like a dog. And there's like one dog that's drooling. So they do a really good job with colors here, where it's like the screen tint. And, you know, there's like a lot of orange and purplish in this episode. And the colors really do pop out. It's a different style than the first episode, but it's a good like change of pace. I mean, this is a different time that Jack's in, so it's good that they kind of mix it up there. But eventually, you know, he's like, hey, I have a mission for you. Like, you need to come with us. And then I think they barter or something. I don't know why Jack decides to follow him, but there is like an Aku little mini tower. It's like in a bridge. And this kind of like teleports you to Aku's lair. So it's like right there. And I don't think they had any idea about it. But there's all these like little guys who used to live in the sea. They all have like not scuba diving kits, but I can't think of the word right now. But they look like little astronauts basically, because they have like a bubble. It looks like it's basically like a fish tank or fish bowl, and then they have like little suits there. Those people, but their like head is this big. It's like these little tiny creatures that have like kind of almost like a mech, like in a mech body. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a very poor job of explaining this, but those creatures go and they're like, hey, all of our waters are taken. He's like, please help us, save us. And Aku's like, of course they're taken. He's like, I did that shit. He's like, dude, I took all your water. He's like, you answer to me now. And there's like one guy who comes up and he's like, you monster. And he's like, oh, please forgive the boy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And Aku just zaps him with his eyes. He's like, he's done. Like that's not going to happen anymore. But he's like, you know what? He's like, I will give you a new home. He's like, you'll live in the sea. But he's like, every month you need to construct this giant pillar, the statue in my likeness. And so he's like, to remind everyone like who runs shit. And it reminds me of like the first episode where he had Jack's father, like, you know, where they're whipping him. He's basically just enslaving everyone and making them make like these giant tributes to them, just making them work the whole time. So they're forced to work and they're forced to be enslaved basically. And there's no freedom there. There's no fun. It's just like Aku is like, oh, you can live here. I'll let you live, but you're going to work the whole time. And so that was interesting. And then there's like a little like follower, like an informant basically that goes to see Aku. And she's like, by the way, I have some good news. And he's like, what do you mean? What's the good news? And she's like, there's a samurai here. And, you know, he's come to like say he's going to stop you or whatever. And then there's like a little TV, not a TV, but they like open the flames up, and Aku, who like, it's like his crystal ball basically. He looks through and he sees Jack and he's like, oh, so we meet again, samurai. Like he's like, our fate brings us together or whatever. That's just like a look ahead. The dogs do get in their spaceship and they bring Jack to their home world. And this is where Jack finds out that like these dogs completely enslaved by Aku, like, you know, they're digging, they're mining basically. They have to work for a living. It's the talking dog, and he finds out there's all these dogs, but they're like mining. It's like a prison basically. They're mining like all these like red crystals, and they're like struggling to pull around and stuff. And he's like, wow, even a dog shouldn't live like a dog. And they like look at him funny, and he's like, oh, you don't get it in my time. Like dogs were like working like a dog basically. So that was a funny little bit. But basically, Samurai Jack is like, I'm not going to stand for this. Like I'm going to stand up for you. And there's all of these like beetles coming, and these are Aku's beetles, but they're coming over the ridge. And Jack is like, all right, it's time. And he just gives like that determined look, and it cuts to black. Hey guys, so for the magic sword for this one, I got to give it to these three guys right here, the ones that give Samurai Jack his name. It's kind of funny that he just gets it because he's just the first one, or they're just the first one that he sees, and they're like, "Yo, Jack," and they're just using Jack as like a slang term, like, "Oh, Jack, look at him go," and then he just like, I don't know why he adopts the name, why he doesn't just say this is my real name, but it's a cool little fun bit that Gendy did to just be like, oh yeah, his name is Samurai Jack, and there's like not going to be a real complicated origin behind that. It's just like these civilians that he sees, they're going to be like, oh, Jack, and that's his name. And he's like, oh, I'm Jack. Because they're like, what do you call, like, what's your name? And he's like, they call me Jack. And this is how they get it. So it's funny because I don't think it's really remembered well in the series. It's like, it kind of gets touched over, but I like that Gendy is just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where his name comes from. It doesn't matter like what's happened before. It's like, this is Jack and this is how he gets it. And he's thrown right into the kind of action here and in a world he doesn't know. And he just rolls with it. He's like, yo, this is Jack and deal with it. So I think these characters, there weren't a ton of characters in this one. It was kind of just a bunch of like generic characters. And then these guys, and but yeah, these guys get the magic sword for me in this one. So for a portal in time, guys, for my favorite scene, I wasn't crazy about this episode, to be honest with you. I think it's a very little scene, but I think the when Jack goes to the club just to see the door with the three eyes, I really liked it. It gave me like a Star Wars, like Jabba's palace sort of deal when R2 and 3PO go up there and there's like the eyeball that comes out. The fact that there's 3 slots and 3 eyeballs and then he opens it up and it's one monster, I thought it was cool. And then again, this just reminded me a lot of Star Wars, just him going in the club basically and seeing all the different species and things he's never seen before. And they got to have fun with it. This was only the second episode, so I think like the later seasons you see better designs, but for what was in there, it was a good variety. And I think it was cool to not only have us interact have us like kind of react to that, but also Jack to be like, all he knew was like people and dogs and peacefulness, and now it's like this crazy world with flying cars and all these different species, and he's like just thrown into this world, doesn't know what to do. So but yeah, that scene where he goes to the door with the 3 eyes, I think is a scene where I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So that was my favorite scene for this one. All right, guys, for a score for this one, I thought this was kind of a big drop off from the first episode. Still good. I mean, the animation is good, but it just felt a little plain to me. So I'm going to give this one a 7-1. I didn't dislike this episode. I just thought I was kind of checking the time more, and it's only a 23-minute episode, but I was kind of like, where the first episode, I was like, wow, I can't believe this shot and this shot and this shot. It's action packed and this is going. And it's a pilot, so like obviously it's going to hook you, or it's got to hook you. For this one, I was kind of like, okay, well, this is all right, but they didn't really have any action scenes. They didn't have any like, I talked about in the pilot about the 3 screens. There wasn't really any of that. I think there was one scene with a split. But then they actually cut out of the action, which is weird because usually the show is known for like its crazy action and like showing you like start to finish Jack like flying through the air. And they actually like said, we had action in the first one. This is not going to be about the action, which I respect, but there wasn't enough there to keep my interest for most of the episode. So this one I'm going to give a little bit of a lower score than the pilot for sure. For Jack facts here, guys, I talked about how this is how Jack gets his name, and the fun fact, or Jack fact, I should say, is that we never find out his real name. That is his name for all intents and purposes. I don't know. That's pretty much all I got for that one. Okay, guys. Well, that's another episode. I've got to get back. Not as high on this one, but I, still appreciate the art style, still enjoy the show, and I'm looking forward to episodes that are coming up. But this one was. I use this term a lot, but this one was a filler. It felt very much like a filler. Not much happened. Didn't push the plot forward too much, but still an okay, 20 minutes of television. The animation was still nice. I like to think what they did with colors here, just with these 3 guys alone, with the orange, the blue, and the green, and they kind of play with that a little bit. So the background is cool. The flying cars are cool. Still, I like the animation. It's just not my style as much. I prefer the style of the first episode where that kind of blew me away. This one was kind of like, okay, here's kind of our template and we're going to put like minimal scenes in here and we're not going to focus on the action. So a little lighter, but still a good episode. But yeah, that's been it, guys. Forgot to get back. Thanks for checking out Project Potter. My name's Kyle, your host. Go check out the other content. Go check out the other episodes. Like, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell notification if you want to be notified anytime I drop content, and there should be a lot of it coming. So, yeah, thanks, guys, for checking it out. And until next time, guys, got to get back.